Welcome back to Endangered Species Spotlight. This week we are talking about the Pacific lamprey. The Pacific lamprey is a type of jawless fish that is native to the Pacific Rim, so found on the west coast of North America and over across the Pacific to the east coast of a bunch of countries in Asia. Now, a couple things to note about this. The Pacific lamprey is a different species from the sea lamprey. When a lot of people think of lamprey, they do think of the sea lamprey, which is a highly invasive species in the Great Lakes. This is not the same thing. It is native to North America and the Pacific Ocean instead of the Atlantic Ocean, where the sea lamprey is native to, and it is not invasive, it is not causing any problems, and the population is declining and needs to be protected. That being said, it also is still technically classified as least concern as a species. It's not technically endangered, but the population is decreasing very rapidly, so much that it is a concern. So while not technically an endangered species yet, there is still a lot of conservation efforts going on in order to make sure that it stays not an endangered species, because it's also a very important part of the ecosystem as well as culturally. Pacific lamprey do play a very important part in the ecosystem. They provide food for a lot of other animals, such as birds and other types of fish, as well as humans too. People do eat the Pacific lamprey, and while I've never tried it myself, reportedly it's a very good fish and very nutritious. It makes up a solid portion of the diet of a lot of people on the North American coast, especially the indigenous people that live there. And while it is a parasite, and parasites tend to get a rather bad reputation, it isn't overall super harmful to the host that it's on. Most parasites don't actually kill their hosts, and unless a individual fish or something has a ridiculously high load of lampreys, there really isn't that much harm happening. Now, this is kind of a different story for the sea lamprey in the Great Lakes because it is invasive and not natively found there. The native fish don't really have all of that protection against them, and they are being harmed a little bit more, as well as there being a lot of competition and other stuff happening in the Great Lakes, but that's not happening with the Pacific lamprey. Now, like I said before, while not technically classified as endangered, the Pacific lamprey's population is decreasing rapidly. That's due to a number of issues, including things like habitat loss and degradation, and the blocking of the natural streams and rivers and other channels that the lamprey— frickin' motorcycle out there. Can I help you? Anyways, the blocking of migratory channels that the lamprey rely on to complete their life cycle every year. With these channels blocked by things like dams or being drained, or just the water level overall decreasing, that very badly impacts the migration and thus the whole lamprey population. Another future concern that hasn't really been observed yet is climate change. If the climate and the water temperature and everything continues to change so much, that will also affect the lamprey population because the larvae rely on a very specific habitat and specific conditions to be able to thrive. Now, again, they're not officially endangered, but there are still multiple conservation efforts going on to make sure that they remain not endangered, to kind of get ahead of the population decline. These conservation efforts include things like modifying dams to allow passage of migrating lamprey, as well as other fish. Other fish will benefit from these passageways as well. There's also potential captive breeding going on to breed larval lampreys and raise them up until they are strong enough to survive on their own, and then releasing them out into the wild. Also, just the overall protection and cleanup of rivers and streams that the lamprey are native to, which will again also benefit other fish and aquatic wildlife other than the lamprey. So in many ways, the Pacific lamprey is also acting as an umbrella species to protect other less well-known wildlife in the similar areas.